Welcome to the No More Meds podcast with Dr. Corinne Weaver. Are you stressed out because you keep getting sick and don't know what steps to take? Are you sick of not getting answers from your doctor and always needing to take drugs? How would your life be different if you were healthy? Be inspired and stay tuned for some practical solutions for healthy living.
Hello, everyone, and this is our second episode in No More Meds. And today we're actually going to discuss what is health and how negativity and unforgiveness can affect your health. But first, let's define what actually health is. If you look in the definition, it's going to say that it's a state of optimal physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Health is not merely the absence of disease or feeling good. So that's what the definition states. And it's just kind of interesting to think back that if we don't have any symptoms, we think we're healthy. But we have to break it down into what is actually causing the problems with our health today. And I believe the biggest problem that I see in my office and when I talk with patients is stress, and how stress can actually affect our health more than anything else. And there's different types of stress. And in my book, The No More Meds, we talk about what the different types are. And so the first type is actually physical. And you guys know me with my bike accident. That was actually a physical stress. And accidents happen. We can't change that. They're a part of life. I did not want to have that bike accident, but it happened. And from that physical trauma and that physical stress, it created all this, issues with my asthma and allergies. And even the smallest trauma, like someone hitting their toe, can just send a signal into your body that can create stress within your body. So unfortunately, most of the time, the disease that will develop into symptoms, and you already forgot about the trauma that happened. So, I thought about the bike accident when I was looking back to my health, but there's some patients that don't link the physical traumas to their health because it was like 10 years ago. So I'll be talking to a patient and I'll ask, have you had any car accidents or you had any bike accidents? Have you fallen off a tree? And they're like, no, I can't think of anything. And then by the time I look at their x-rays or I look at their spine, I'm like, man, something happened right in this area. And they're like, oh yeah, well, I did, I was playing basketball and I messed up my clavicle bone, or something like that. And they'll tell me the story and I'm like, oh, that, even though it happened 20 years ago, it's still affecting you today because it never got, addressed right. In fact, I deal with a lot of kids, and the American Pediatric Association, they estimate that the average child falls 5,000 times as they learn to walk. 5,000 times. That's a lot. And did you know that 8 out of 10 newborns are born with a subluxation, which that means that the person has interference with that brain to body communication and their central nervous system from day one. So that's why we look at babies. That's why we look at children as they're learning to walk. And, as we grow, we just have injuries that happen to us. So physical stress is a big correlation to how your body can respond years later to your health. So it's real important that I know that as a doctor. If you're seeing another doctor, you want to give them that timeline so they can give an idea of how, as your body is healing, what we call retracing as your body's healing, you'll go through some of that physical stress to get back to a good state of mind again. Another second type of stress that I see a lot is chemical stress. We wake up in the morning and we use all these artificial scents and shampoos and soaps, and our teenagers are putting on this deodorant that puts that contains aluminum, or even you're using deodorant that contains aluminum, and that clogs up your lymph system. And we as parents, we think we're doing ourselves good by using dryer sheets and to make our clothes smell good. But all those chemicals and toxins, they're actually closing up our pores, and they're not allowing our bodies to breathe properly. And you know how I feel about breathing. So long-term exposure, if you keep using these products every day, I would advise you to look at the products that you're using, your makeup, your shampoo, sunblock is a big one, fragrances, all those everyday household cleaners. It's just a toxic overload. And all that stress can actually create problems within the liver. And if you can't detox properly, then that's going to stress out your adrenals, and then they actually become diseased. And then you're not able to function in an everyday lifestyle just because of all the chemical stress. And those are things that we can control. Now, I realize that when we walk outside, we can't control every chemical that's in the outdoor world, but in our house, I would say try to clean that up as best as you can. Now, we use a lot of different essential oils, and there's a lot that I love, but you could start with just using lemon and vinegar, just using a few drops of lemon and some vinegar, and that's good enough to clean up a shower or your kitchen, countertops and stuff like that. So maybe I'll give you guys some tips later on how to use different products for everyday cleaning. But right now, just look and see what you are using on an everyday basis. Are you using, like I said, aluminum deodorants and using all these makeup and shampoo products that have a lot of chemicals in them? So just kind of get a gauge of what you're doing today. And that can affect, like I said, your health and even your children's health. So now's the time, to invest in looking at things, because you want your brain, you want your immune system to be strong. And, if we look at studies, in fact, there was one in 2008 that's talked about, I know it was a long time ago, but that's the last study that I can find that there was over 200 environmental toxins that was found in the umbilical cord blood from newborns. So basically what I'm saying is, like, us as moms, we get blamed for everything, right? But we pass down these chemicals to our children. And, these toxic elements can affect our immune system and can affect our brain. So just something to think about. And then the last thing is, the last type of stress I want to talk about is spiritual stress. And when you're sick, a lot of times that's all you have to focus on is, I'm sick, and I know I remember being sick and thinking, and if you ever just recently got over an illness, you just want to get out of the illness. And boy, are you grateful for when you're not sick. It makes you appreciate health a lot more when you're not sick, especially if you've been sick for a while. So taking time, even when you're sick, to read uplifting scriptures with your kids and listening to uplifting music. We talked about that last week. That can really help you along on your healing journey. Emotional stress can play a big role in it too. Like if you've had a divorce, or if you had a death of a close family member, or changing a new school, or moving to a new house, some of those things we just need to learn to let go. And, that's a big thing, because a lot of people don't learn how to let things go and move forward in their life. With these emotional stress, they have found that it can affect actually your blood sugar, believe it or not. Yeah. So glucose metabolism and brain function. And I talk a lot about blood sugar and brain, and how our brain needs two things. It needs glucose and it needs oxygen. So you need to be able to find balance between blood sugar, and you need to get enough oxygen with your breathing. So, there's a lot of good research about fish oil, and there was actually a 3-year study concluded that if a child received fish oil supplements between ages 6 months to 3 years, they had reduced rate of allergy-related coughs. So, fish oils and good healthy fats are really good for normal growth of blood vessels, and they help repair your nerves. And I always think of the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz, because he talks about grabbing the oil that he can squirt on his joints to keep them from squeaking. And, when I take the fish oil, and I recommend taking that just because it helps with movement in your joints, but it helps your brain. But if you're allergic to fish, you can take flaxseed oil or chia seed oil, and they just kind of help with glucose metabolism and brain function. That's just one thing that you can do today, is get some good healthy fats to help your brain. So I just want to kind of give you a little tip there. And, changing the way we think. That would probably be the next tip that I would say is, that, if we start thinking the negative talk or negative and worry and fearful and just having those thoughts, they're going to become what, basically, if you start, I don't even want to think about it, right? I want to stay positive. But when we start thinking those negative things, we can't defeat and expect victory. So I encourage you today to just really fight the good fight about instant gratification. If someone told you that you look pretty today. Us as women are always like, oh, or I think this is funny because when I see new patients or just patients in general, and I'm like, oh, I love that color shirt. And then the first thing I respond is like, oh, I got this for like $2, down the street. Or like, they don't want to like hardly accept like a thank you kind of, And so, and that's kind of hard too, because we're always trying to stay humble. But when someone tells you that you're beautiful or tells you your hair looks good, really accept that and, take that as a good gratification. And, a lot of times, like I said, we don't want to, make those changes. We want to just have those negative talk, and we look at ourselves in the mirror and we just want to say bad things about ourselves all the time. And one thing, as I lost, in this journey, I've lost actually 60 pounds over the last, I think it's 4 or 5 years now, and I've been able to keep it off. And one thing that I learned in trying to lose the weight is being happy where I was. And that was something really hard for me, because I would look in the mirror and I'd be like, gosh, I'm so ugly. I need to lose weight. It was just constantly, I needed to lose weight. And then when I changed my thinking of I'm beautiful and God created me who I am, and it was easier for me to accept my body, and it was easier for me to lose weight. And I know that sounds silly, but it's so right. So, because you're always asking, am I exercising? Am I eating right? Am I sleeping right? Am I doing all these things? And there's so many things in life that we can do. And, if you're having those negative thoughts, if you're speaking negative things on you, what I would say is do my 3 R's. And the 3 R words is recognize where those thoughts come from. As soon as the thought comes in there, I want you to reject it. Reject that negative thought immediately. Don't even allow yourself to dwell on it for even like 5 seconds, because the longer you think about it, it's going to be harder to get rid of it. And then the third one, replace it with the truth. That's positive thoughts. And, like God created us in His image, and just saying those wonderful, positive things, that it's not your fault, that you can love and accept yourself and forgive yourself. And I really want that to say, so you can say that right now, is that you love, you accept, and you forgive yourself. Because if you don't forgive yourself for the things that you've done, it's just really, really, really hard to forgive other people. So right now, just take a deep breath and remember to forgive yourself and forgive other people, because I have found that having that unforgiveness can cause, actually, I've heard even the cancer word. I had a really good friend that was an oncologist, and he told me that the cause of cancer, he believed, was unforgiveness. So really, that first step is the confession and receiving forgiveness, and restore that fellowship that's a result of the confession. So the word forgive means to set free and to let go. And I promise I won't start singing from Disney's Frozen, Let It Go. But to forgive, you must decide to give up any urges that you have to be angry or resentful, and help yourself and your children disown those feelings and walk away from them. Please, please let yourself free and let go and let God. I appreciate you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Keep breathing.
Thanks for listening to the No More Meds podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share your favorite episodes with your family and friends, or at least leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher. The content and opinions expressed are those of the host and presenters. They are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. Product statements have not been evaluated by the FDA.